you start to turn on the recording. All right. And you start to become aware that you are conscious. You're not just, reacting. Um, most people in life, they just react. There's certain conditions and responses, and they just function that way. And we're starting to get to the level where we are conscious. And as a conscious being, at first, there is the observer effect. In fact, on Thursday, when we get more into experiences and things, remember that was one of the homeworks to look that up. But there's the observer, the observed, and the process of observing, which is the three in the one. So there is the thought from a subjective level. There is the which is the idea, which like Neville says is Christ. That's your Christed being, is your imagination. And then you project that into the physical world. And in the physical world, it takes shape based on your frequency and vibration, which is molded and shaped by you and the conditioning and the programmings that have happened to you. But life is an inside job. And we've been conditioned to look at it as being outside, objectified. As they say in the good book, where things become flesh, where you have the absolute, that part of it, and then it becomes flesh. So we want to start from the beginning. And one of the most powerful beginnings, which, it's been kind of missed over, it's said a little bit here and there, but it's the basis of everything, is that the kingdom, the source, the ultimate is within. Life is an inside job. So that whole kingdom of eternal, unmutable, ever newly bliss cosmic consciousness is within you. It's not some pie in the sky. It's not some, made up version that, it's a physical place. It's the consciousness within you at its highest level, sometimes referred to as your higher self, and then there's a lower self, or called heaven and earth. And one of the things in terms of becoming a master, you start to become the master of heaven on earth. And you start to exemplify that. And your soul, your inner being, starts to manifest into existence. And so the what we refer to in a more cosmic way is the omnipresence, omniscience, and omnipotence, is really the God love, the God bliss, the God wisdom, okay, that exists in every particle of this vibratory creation in the vibrationless transcendental absolute. The bliss of the absolute, the transcendental joy, the self-sufficient, the pure knowledge. Okay? So what happens is that we lose sight of that because of the conditionings and the programmings functioning in day-to-day life. And our senses are projected outwardly. And they have to be to be able to function and survive in this existence. Okay. So what we tell you to do is stop. Be still and know that I am God. Stop twice a day, every day. Take hold of the reins, because your five senses are the reins. It's just like the picture I showed you of Krishna, on the chariot and the five horses, right? That's your senses. So you take rein of that, and on that chariot with Krishna with the Arjuna, which is a great soul, which would be you. Okay, you would have the five horses or the senses. Okay, this is a partial picture. I think I showed it to you before, but full picture shows the reins coming off of the five horses. It's like five white horses, which is an example of your senses. And what happens is that people get so ingrained in their senses that they lose sight of the self, the big self, right? And so, but the charioteer is Krishna, which is the avatar, which is your avatar, okay, within you, the Christ consciousness. And as a Christed being, you start to maintain that self, right, amidst of all activity. And that's why it says, seek ye the kingdom of heaven first, and then all things will be added unto you. If you don't mess it up, okay, if you don't trip it out, all right, which we've been conditioned to do that, especially in Kali Yuga. So what we want to look at is to tap into that inner universe, as above, so below, as within, so without, so that inner universe objectifies, takes on the character, manifests into your physical world. The invisible is the basis of the visible. The absolute is the basis of the relative. The spiritual is the basis of the physical. The most spiritual things you can have is a thought. 60 to 100,000 of them every day. So how do you use that thought? Right? And we want to start using it in its highest aspect. And not only that, to become conscious of it. Right? So as you infuse pure consciousness into your awareness, you start waking up. And the more awake you are, the more I'm awake, aware, and vibrantly alive. Because you're not limiting yourself. You're not caught up into the lower aspect. The lower aspect of it in ancient times was called hell. The higher aspect was called heaven. So you're either God coming from the heavens, or you're a devil coming from the hell. Both of them are you. In fact, all three of them are you. You, and you. The Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Positive, negative, neutral. Neutron, electron, proton. Okay. The observer, the process of observing, all right, and the observed. So when you look at the unified field, everything is unified. It's all consciousness. It's all a big wave. It's all a divine Leela. Okay. So the divine starts to come out into the sublime, and then it gets grosser and grosser. And that's where the matter comes in. Physical, gross matter comes in. but everything is coming from the source, whether it's good, bad, ugly, up, down, in, out, black and white. Okay. So as you start to develop your Christ consciousness, your God consciousness, okay, which is covered, or is, you might say, concentrated wall is in front of it. That's the stresses and strains in your nervous system, right? So as you start to refine your nervous system and the stresses start to come off, then you start to reveal to yourself by yourself. That's why it's called self-realization, because you start to realize the truth, and then the truth starts to set you free. And this is by experience. It's not by intellectual understanding. It's not by, you know, saying, you know, I'm great, I'm great, I'm great, I'm God, I'm God. Okay. Those things are little hacks that you can do to start to open it. But your development of consciousness comes from your inner work, right? And refining the nervous system. Okay. That's why it's so important. Earlier, William was talking about he's starting to be more conscious of what he says, how he operates, you know, because what happens is that everything manifests. Every thought manifests, right? But for that to completely manifest in the relative, it has to go from a fluorescent into a laser. That's why repetition is so important. Meditating twice a day, every day, you know, thinking your mantra every day, studying every day, doing exercise. You got a physical body. You want to move that body, even if it's just at home. You know, they got a thing that's called chair yoga. You can just sit in your chair, okay, and do exercises. All right. It doesn't take a lot, because the nervous system, which goes through your spine, you know, your 33 vertebrae, Jacob's ladder, as long as you keep it fluid, the body will maintain itself and will continue to go. You know, that's why we give you all these examples of Methuselah and Thoth and Anna, you know, grandmother Jesus, 650, 900, you know, 16,000, because the body can keep going. What most human beings have in their mind is a death hormone. And that death hormone says you're going to barely make it to 100. And that's deeply rooted from the conditionings and the programmings. All right. And so, but you can stay here as long as you choose to, because you're a creator. Right. It's just that you have a default system, which is your subconscious, that takes over. So if it's in your subconscious that you're going to drop the body at 80, 90, 100, then the universe says, okay, your wish is my demand. Right? But you change that, you go in and you reprogram yourself instead of just being programmed through the conditionings and programming in the 3D matrix, the Kali Yuga. All right, then that's what will happen. Okay, so the kingdom of God consists of your transcendental bliss, your joy, your godness, your goodness, your love, light, and bliss, moving from death, disease, and destruction to love, light, and bliss. So as your senses start to take on, you know, their characteristics, they become more refined. You see, you start to see the essence in things. You start to feel the essence of things. So on a scientific level, it's called the aura, or the frequency and the vibration. We sometimes refer to it as vibes, which is the vibration. So the way that you tap in, tune in, and turn on is you be still, or you go be in alignment with someone who has raised their vibration, who's done the work. Or you get in a group situation like here, super radiance, where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. In certain parts of the world, literally, the way that we go to the mall or to the movie or wherever, or to the store, people literally just go and sit with high beings because they know the value of it. Just sit. We talked about that. There's a great lady up in DC. She's added another little component with it. Okay, a divine mother, where she hugs people. But you really don't even need to hug. She's just like putting some icing on the cake. It's just being in the presence. All right. It's called darshan. Right. So whenever you can be, the same thing with group meditation, whenever you can get into a situation like that, show up. 95 to 98% of life is showing up because you're tuning your nervous system. You see, being in the company of the wise, right? Because people there, I just heard a thing on social media about sister was saying, look, I've been hanging out with rich people lately, okay? And I got these 5 qualities. And she was mainly focusing on the physical world, but it's the same thing, okay? Because there's that physical side of ourselves, and then there's the mental, emotional, it's the mental, emotional, physical level of ourselves. All right. But you just tap in, you tune in, you turn on, because everything in that physical world, as we've mentioned, but it has to keep going and more, is an effect. It has already happened. It's just like thoughts in your meditation. Okay. The stress has already been released. Okay. We just let it come and go. We innocently favor the mantra. Right. And the mantra is a high frequency vibration that helps you to attune your nervous system. Okay. And, everybody should have a mantra because that's just like eating food for the soul. All right. Because that allows for you to start tapping in, tuning in, and turning on. And again, what do you do with the mantra? You repeat it. The mother of all learning. Okay. Now, the uniqueness of the TM mantras, which all you guys have, it has no meaning. Okay. Just has sound vibratory qualities. Right. And so there are other mantras, just like Jesus is a mantra. In the church, Jesus, you're healed in the name of Jesus. And people get healed. And that's not even his name. All right. But people have put so much energy around it that it's taken on that frequency and that vibration. In the English language, we create words. So people have just created the energy around Yeshua's, fake name. And it works to the degree. But what happens, especially in the Christian church, is that people don't develop their consciousness. They just go by belief, you see? And you can do a lot with belief, but you're going to always be limited with belief. All right. You go to knowingness. You go to the higher self. You go to tapping in, tuning in, and turning on. You go to your Christ consciousness, your God consciousness, which is within you. That's the kingdom. Okay. You take your human, limited consciousness to a divine, unlimited, unbounded, infinite consciousness, which is your true nature. Okay. Matter is condensed energy. Is coagulated energy. It's all energy. That's the thing with the whole of Einstein's theory. Okay, E equals MC squared on a scientific level. You know, the masters, the shamans, the high priests, they've been telling us about it, you know, since time immemorial. Okay, but matter being that condensed energy, and then from that gross matter, the physical energy is condensed into what's sometimes referred to as astral energy or ethereal energy. Okay. And then that energy is moved into condensed thought force, the thought force of God, the thought force of truth, the thought force of light. It's all thought. So what happens is that your cosmic consciousness, your Christ consciousness, the kingdom from within is hidden behind layers of matter, layers of physical energy, layers of astral energy, and layers of thought or consciousness. It's there. See, that's the thing. Truth and fact. The truth is you're this cosmic being that's full of love, light, and bliss, but you created these sheaths, these layers, okay? These bodies, energetic bodies between you and your true self, okay? So the whole process of unraveling that is to become more awake, aware, and vibrantly alive, to become more still and know the truth. Be still and know that I am God. Know the truth, and then the truth will set you free. The truth is you are a multi-dimensional light being of love, light, and bliss. The truth is that you're God, God, and God. Right? A fact might be that you're so and so and so and so. They got a certain amount of money in the bank. The body is getting more mature, blah, 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 blah. Okay. But that's not the truth. Truth is, as the great brother Sai Baba said, I am God, I am God. I am the same as God. There's no difference from me and God. Okay. So as the macronism becomes the micronism, as the universe, as the big, in science they say is the Big Bang, or the unified field, or the universe becomes the omniverse, goes into the universe, goes into the point value, which is you here on earth in the physical body. Okay. Literally, as you start to open up your consciousness, you go from that gross limited matter of a human being, and you go into unbounded infinite truth of being a God being, of being a super being, which is our natural birthright. Okay. So moving from mortality to immortality. Okay. Moving from matter, all right, into spirit. Right. Moving from lack, limitation, and darkness into light. I am the light of lights, pure consciousness for all mankind. And that starts with you. And that starts with, the kingdom. The kingdom of God, the kingdom of truth, the kingdom of light is not separate from the kingdom of matter. Okay. They're both within you, through you, and around you. That's almost like that thing that I said, you know, if God is omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient, where does God end and you begin? Okay. And when you think about it, or you just know, well, God doesn't end. How can God end if it's all those things? Okay. So we're we're not separate from it, but the biggest game on planet Earth is separation. So if you think you're separate from it, you are. Now, on a conscious intellectual level, as you become more awake, aware, and vibrantly alive, you can say, well, okay, um, intellectually, I'm not separate from it anymore. Okay. But if you don't have the consciousness behind it, it's just an intellectual thought that comes and goes. You see what I'm saying? So that's why it's so important to develop your consciousness. Knowledge is different in different states of consciousness. Your consciousness will determine your experience, period. That's why you want to develop Christ consciousness, God consciousness, unity consciousness, right? Because it's your consciousness. So you're going from the gross to the subtle. That's the other thing that the mantra helps you to do. You see, when you pick up a thought, it's at the gross 5 or 10% part of your mind. And what you're doing is you're settling down and experience finer and finer levels of a thought. You're actually reversing thought process. And you're going down to more subtle and subtle levels. And the more subtle it is, the more powerful it is. That's why an atomic bomb, a nuclear bomb, is so powerful. Because you're not dealing with the gross matter, you're breaking up the atom and going down into the more subtle aspects. Okay. So, but if you buy into, because we're such powerful beings, the matter consciousness and bypass the kingdom consciousness, okay, that's when your body falls into disease. That's when you have mental and physical sufferings. That's when you get into lighter aspects of, mental disease, or is worry, anxiety. And it's almost accepted in modern society. If something doesn't go your way, you start worrying about it. You get anxious about it. And you make pronunciations of it. I was worried about you. Okay. And that's just conditioning. Okay. They've turned that into a term of endearment. Right? Instead of knowing that you are a god or goddess, and says, I put my attention on, I knew you would be here. I knew you would be all right, because I sent you love, light, and bliss. I encircled you with the light. I'm not worried about anything. That's a waste of my time and energy. Okay. I'm a conscious being. I'm a creator of heaven and earth. Okay. It's just like in the financial world. What do they call people? They call them consumers. Right. And people buy into that. Consumer. I got to buy stuff. It's consumer. All right. But the people who are successful, they become builders. They build. They don't consume. Okay. It's just a conditioning, a programming. People are conditioned for scarcity, lack, and limitation. Oh, if they have so much over here, then that's less for me. I got, no, there's enough for everybody. And if there isn't, you create more. Everything is created. You can create it from thin air, abracadabra. That's what the magician does. That means to come forth. You start abracadabra in your life. Okay? So in the kingdom of matter, humans find the disease, they find the physical and mental and emotional imbalances. And what we're saying is transcend them. And you get to the point because you know, are practicing, you're doing the mother of all learning all the time, repetition, that you transcend it altogether. And if it does come up, okay, we've gotten from pretty good high sources that, you got about 64 seconds to change it, right? Because if you buy into that lower vibration, that's what you're going to get. What you see is what you get, all right? So we want to start lifting up and being in that high vibration. And if we're not, change it. Know that you're a master, okay? And start getting to the realization of the unfoldment of omnipresence, omniscience, and ever new bliss, okay? Realize, remember, we're everything and a bag of chips. We're alpha and omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last, all right? But if you don't realize it, it can be hard to make it down the street, literally. Okay. So it's the field of all possibilities. Right? And as you take that inward flow of your consciousness and you stream that into your kingdom, into your pure consciousness. Remember, there's the conscious, there's the subconscious, there's the unconscious, and then there's the superconscious or the pure consciousness, referred to in ancient times as the self with the big S. All right. So as you follow that inward flowing stream of consciousness by meditating, by being still, okay, you start to reach that blissful kingdom of God that exists behind the wall of matter, the opaque limitations of the physical aspect of yourself. Now, one of the spiritual aspects that we've turned into a physical thing in our bodies is the pineal gland, otherwise known as the sixth chakra, right? And so that helps you with the veil between the physical and the non-physical, okay? The relative and the absolute. So the more you open that up, but it's not just one chakra, it's all of them. They work together, they spin together. But that one particularly, that third eye or the first eye, helps you to go beyond the limitations of the physical world. It helps to lift the veil between the physical and the spiritual, right? And so literally by eating right, living right, doing right, you start to open up that energy center, because it's all energy, that manifests in the physical into that particular gland, just like you got to open up your heart. More and more people are doing it, but up until recently, the heart chakra in most people were not open. Now they could love, an intimate person next to them, or some family members. And then a lot of times that would be closed too. That's why people be fussing and fighting. because the heart chakra closed down. Okay. All right. So, but we're talking about having it open all the time. That's where that thing came in, like turn the other cheek, because you're in such bliss and love. Okay, so you tripped up, you messed up, or you did something to me. Who cares? I still love you. It's like, I'm turning the other cheek. You want to hit me some more? Okay. Because your consciousness is not based on that outer experience. You're established in yourself. And you're establishing that bliss, that love, that light. And it's all God. God tripping with God. Okay. So as we grow and we open up that bliss, that's the other thing about pure consciousness. You're in 24-hour bliss. You don't have to go and find happiness. You are happiness. You are love. You are light. You are the money and the honey. Okay. And then because we're in a physical world, because of the attraction, that frequency goes out, and everything that you want to be, do, or have has to manifest. But we still live in, even though at the highest level it's all unified at one, at lower levels, okay, we're individualized expressions of the source of God. So to give you an example, I showed you guys once, and you can also look it up on the internet, the Maharishi's University, they have these big golden domes. And in the dome, there's 6-inch foam. Right? So we do practices. We go within, we meditate first, and then you do these sutras, which are threads of consciousness. And there's sutras for seeing at a distance, hearing at a distance, friendliness. One of the most profound one is yogic flying. So your pure consciousness brings you up, but the collective stress of the world brings you back down. And that's why the foam is there, because we're all in this together. Okay. So in Kali Yuga, there are all kinds of forces that want to bring you down. It's like Darth Vader and the boys, they're at their heights. And because we're moving into a new era known as the age of Aquarius, or Sat Yuga, or heaven on earth, right? The stuff is start to be fast and fructifying. The challenges, because the challenges come from things that you've projected outside of yourself, but you're really creating them, because that's the frequency and vibration that you're putting out. That's another reason why it's so important to become more and more conscious, because 99% of people have no idea what they put. They only know about the intellect, and the intellect can make a mistake. It does it all the time. It's called a mistake of the intellect, because it can only take in information from the physical level. It's not taking in the mental, the emotional, the causal, the astral. It's not taking in any of those aspects, and the 108 other bodies that you have. Okay. Remember, you're a multidimensional being. Even though we've pinpointed our consciousness into this physical realm. The one has become the many. That's called descending into matter. And now, if you have enough consciousness, the many becomes the one. That's called ascending. So descending and ascending. the wheel of life, going home. So the whole aspect of becoming enlightened, becoming God realized, is tapping into the kingdom within you, the light, the love, the bliss, refining the nervous system, expanding your consciousness, and realizing the truth. And the truth sets you free to become a God being, become a super being, become a God, a goddess, a master, a sorcerer. That is our natural birthright. And at that level, there are no limitations. You know, I jokingly say it, but it's true. We're not here to pay bills, even though we pay them. Okay. And if you don't pay them, you know, it gets a little intense. In fact, I have some friends in Africa, and, you know, still, you know, a lot of challenges going on there because they lost the knowledge. Us, really, it was us. And literally, police was coming to a friend of mine's house demanding money for the light bill. And I told her, I said, look, there's no debtor's prison, which they took her to jail and had her stay out in the lobby. It was basically to scare her because they couldn't put him in jail. I said, in any civilized country, and I think Africa is civilized, you know, um, there's no debtor's prison anymore. I mean, even though there's quite a bit of corruption over there, it'd be hard to justify putting somebody in jail just because they didn't pay their bill, their light bill. All right. But the whole consciousness is based on the gross matter. Okay. You didn't manifest enough abundance to pay for this. So we're going to, you know, do something to you. We're going to punish you for that aspect. Okay. Which is part of the ignorance because there's free energy. You see? And anybody who came up with free energy, they were knocked off, like Tesla. Okay. And other people. There's free energy that exists right now. It's all in the atmosphere. All right. So why do we have to pay? That's the system is set up that way. All right. And so the more you grow in consciousness, the slave mentality, the worker mentality, you start to transcend. You're not limited. But if you still have, there's this thing in the Sanskrit literature, it's called Lesha Vidya. And Lesha Vidya means the remains of ignorance. An analogy of it is like you take a butter ball and you throw it off. All right. Because it's a butter ball, some of the butter, some of the grease is still on your hands. That's Lesha Vidya, the remains of ignorance. And that's what, as we grow on the path, we still have some of that Lesha Vidya, but we can get rid of all of it. And, you know, it depends on how regular you are with your practices, with your work, with doing the work, and how much stress you started with. Because everybody's different. Everybody has a different nervous system. Okay. But you can get that remains of ignorance, just like you throw it off, and then you can, you know, put some you can put some soap on it, you can wash it. you can get it off. All right. So we're not limited, but we create limitations. So if you want to realize your full potential, then you start creating less and less of the limitations, and you water the root, which is the kingdom within you, which is the light within you, the love within you, and you generate the consciousness. You generate the love. I am here. I am there. I'm divine love and blessings everywhere. And love conquers all. So you generate that. You create that. I am that. I am that I am. Tat twam asi, aham brahmasmi. And so you transcend those limiting gross matter aspects and you step into the truth of the goodness, the mercy, the light, the love. And the deeper you go into your meditation, and the more you become conscious, you meditate in the waking state, the dream state, and the sleep state. Okay. And the deeper you go, your energies start to unravel from the connections and the attachments to the lower bodies. And then it has to reflect in your physical material world. You start to expand beyond the boundaries of the physical body. If you don't meditate, you're totally caught up into the physical body. Totally. You know, you have friends, relatives, that's all that they know. All right. Because they haven't transcended, they haven't gone beyond. And the way nature works, the universe, usually they're you know, just like you set a timer on a bomb. Okay. People, when they were in their soul state, they set up timers where certain experiences happen, like, you know, they get in an accident, or or they have a heartbreak, or they have, you know, this thing or that thing happen. Those things are elevation tools. But what happens is, if you don't have the consciousness, you go down with them. Then you create stuff like the wailing wall. I mean, just think about that. People just go there to wail. You just be wigged out. Okay? Just to lower their vibration and have a pity party with their friends around. That's conditioning of Kali Yuga, because all you're doing is making it worse. You're lowering your vibration. You know. Now, there is a value to grief, you know, and letting that come out. But that's on one level. On another level, you transcend it. You see? And our ancestors knew that. You know, in ancient Egypt and Kemet, people used to party when people dropped the body. Okay. Still some remnants of that remains in New Orleans, you know, where they have the band, and you know, it's more of a party system. Because who's to say that being on planet Earth in a body is necessarily the best place to be? It's a great place to be, but you know, when a person has used their body because they didn't know in certain ways where the body is not capable anymore, a lot of times the best thing is to let it go. You have other bodies, but the conditionings and the programming is, oh, that's it. It's ended for them. Oh, I got to be sad for them. I got to cry. I got to grieve. You know, everything has value, but whenever you lower your vibration, it's not valuable for you. Okay. And so the more you grow in consciousness, the more you're in this world, but you're not of it. You know, you still have sympathy, you still have understanding, you still have feelings, but you're not caught up into the lower vibration stuff, because you know that creates lesser. We want more. Forget the less. We want more. We want the kingdom. We don't want the little scraps on the side. Okay. So as you start to perfect that stillness of your body and your mind, then as a yogi, as a practitioner, as an adept, as a truth seeker, you start to enjoy the peace, the light, the love, which is naturally yours by birthright. You're made in the image and likeness of God. Okay. And so your body temple, your life starts to be templed. Your life starts to be great. Your life starts to be magnificent and marvelous. Okay. And then the light starts to shine in your mind and your body. The spirit is the basis of all the other bodies. Your base bodies are your mental, emotional, and physical. Right? There are many more, but just for English interpretation. All right. And then the spiritual body is the number one body. That is the basis of your physical, your mental, and your emotion. Nothing can exist in the physical world without first existing in the spiritual. The invisible is the basis of the visible. Okay? So, as we grow in consciousness, we manifest, because you manifest everything all around, you manifest in the physical that which reflects the spiritual. Right? That's why when the Maharishi came out of his cave after 4 years, he called the spiritual regeneration movement. And that TM helped people to spiritually regenerate themselves. And he went out to LA and on a world tour. People were just, catching the vibe and, paying for him. And, it was some rich folks following him around, and they took care of everything for him. And it was a big thing in the paper, said that TM will help you to sleep better. And Maharishi chuckled. He said, look, I'm helping these people to become God realized, become enlightened, cosmic conscious, and they talking about just getting some sleep, falling asleep better. Okay. But he said, whatever they come for, let them come. Doesn't matter. All right. The real deal is enlightenment, not more hustle. We've been conditioned. In fact, some of the richest people in the world on the material level have lost their soul because they're so caught up into the physical aspect. But the majority of the wealthy people, they're wealthy mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. That's true wealth. That's being a conscious millionaire. Okay. That's being awake, aware, and vibrantly alive. You can have it all, whether you're in a tiny house or you're in a mansion, whether you're in a go-kart or you're in a Bugatti. Okay. As far as your consciousness is concerned, you can have it all. Because you're at the level of fullness, of satisfaction, regardless of what happens in the outer world, which is all effects. Without vision, my people perish. If you get the vision right and you're able to hold on to it and you have enough consciousness, it has to manifest in this physical world. The kingdom starts coming. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. on earth, on this physical plane, as it is in heaven, which is your consciousness. I'm giving a sermon. I actually have a DD, Doctor of Divinity, and have actually given a couple of sermons and married a couple of people. It's all the same, whether it's religion, whether it's yogi wogi, whether it's you know uh, 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 um, uh, being successful in the relative, but you got to have the balance between all of your bodies. You see, that's the thing. Whatever you want to call it, whether you want to call it enlightenment, God realization, you know, it's like my mother said. She said, "I want to go be with Jesus." You know, I don't want to stick around anymore. I said, "Well, you can be with Jesus and be healthy. You don't have to be. You don't have to be unhealthy." All right. So it's all the same. It's all one. I and my Father are one. It's really should be I and my mother, Father God. That's another thing about Kali Yuga. They took all the matriarch out and put in the patriarch. But the matriarchal, we all have the male and female, uh, feminine and masculine in us. The feminine is the most creative side. The feminine is nourishing, the uplifting. And the two together create the sun. Okay. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So as we go deeper within the silence, then the activity becomes unbounded. The deeper you go in meditation, the more profound the activity. Okay. And that's anything, whether you want to create castles in the sky or whether you want to just, be in your hammock, on your yard. But the goodness and the mercy of it all is as long as you develop your consciousness, then you're in that altered higher state, the natural state, which we were all destined and born to, to, to be, which is Christ consciousness. I'm a Christed being. I'm, I manifest heaven and earth, being Christed, being enlightened, being within the truth. So the deeper you go within yourself and the more you manifest the truth and the light, the matter has to take shape around it. And there's certain things that naturally come about, which is happiness, extreme happiness, which is called bliss, spontaneous right action. You start to find yourself in the right place at the right time, successfully engaged in the right activity because you just tapped in, tuned in, and turned on. Okay. And having higher thoughts and frequencies that flow through you and that you can pass on to others. Your cup starts running over. So you start to have the infinite happiness. You start to have the peace. Very few people have peace of mind. Their mind beats them up all the time. Right? But the more you grow in consciousness, the more your mind starts to settle, no matter what activity is happening. Whether you're waking, dreaming, or sleeping. And in your waking state, even though there might be turmoil all around you, you still have that peace within. You see? Because you've established it. Remember the cloth and dye analogy. That's why it's so important. Meditate, act, meditate, act. But you got to do the deep meditation. All forms of meditation will help. But the deeper the meditation, the more profound the activity. Okay? So, as we know, meditation quiets the mind, the waves that causes the fluctuation in relative light, your feelings, your chitta, sat, chittananda. Sat is that which is nourishing, uplifting, which is great, which is the highest of the high. Chit is your consciousness. Okay? No matter how gross or how refined it is. And then Ananda is bliss. That's the nature. Okay? That's who we are. That's it's to be in 24-hour bliss, to be happy all the time. So as we start to step into this level of being a supreme being, you know, as being a super being, that was another thing that conditioned out. There's only one supreme being. That's just like our good brothers from the Jewish faith. They say that they're the chosen ones, and they are. Okay. But what they leave out is that everyone is, every race is. Okay. All of us are the chosen ones. But you got to realize that in consciousness. Okay. And then you start having the experience of being intoxicated with the divine, the bliss of the absolute, transcendental joy, the self-sufficient. Okay. So as we start to be within, the without takes on a whole nother flavor. And that flavor is the best flavors that you can imagine. Because you're imagining it anyway. Okay. So you might as well imagine the best, the highest, and the greatest. So, you know, what's that thing in the Bible? Ask and ye shall be given, seek and you shall find, knock and the door shall be open. So that's the process that we're doing. And you always ask. That's another thing about the universe. You know, when you're meditating, being still, you're asking for the truth to come true. And then on a conscious level, if you're in your waking intellect, you can ask. No higher forces, which are part of you, will come to you unless you ask. Ask and it shall be given. Okay? Knock and the door shall open. And you will be set free, which is the natural birth. So life is an inside job. We keep doing the work. We keep showing up. You know, like tomorrow. No, not tomorrow. Day after tomorrow, I'm coming up to DC. Okay, and I'm gonna see if I can do a group meditation while I'm up there. It's for a week, but I'm going to sit with some other higher beings, just to sit. You know, one of them you get an extra bonus where you get a hug, but the main thing is to be still. It's to sit. You see, and refine the nervous system. The other thing from the East, which I went on a few of them when I was there, is a pilgrimage. Okay. Literally, people take pilgrimages, spiritual pilgrimages. They go to these special spots on earth, you know. But the greatest pilgrimage is inside of you, to take you from the more gross matter at the more gross part of your conscious to the more subtle, to the more refined. To go from the gross conscious to the subtle of the subtlest to pure consciousness, the super consciousness. That's the greatest pilgrimage. That's a technique in itself, right? But you can also physically, that's one of the things when we create the Institute, I want to have, you know, trips every year to go to certain sacred spots, or, you know, you physically go out and do things. that will raise your consciousness. All right. But the highest and the best is to go from the gross to the subtle. Okay. And the subtle to the subtlest. That's the greatest pilgrimage. That's what takes you to the truth, the light, the love, and the bliss. Okay. Are there any questions, comments, or points of clarification? I like it when everybody talks at once.
When people come out in masses, as opposed to people who don't, is that because there is a consciousness that is within that mass, or is it just people just being people?
It's the consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Give an example. We're going through the political thing now, okay,
Mm-hmm.
in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And people be like, this candidate is this and this candidate is that, you know, uh, 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 and they get all upset. And this is the candidates reflect the collective consciousness of the people. Okay, as the
Mm-hmm.
collective consciousness rises, those people will change.
Mm-hmm.
Has to.
Mm-hmm.
As above, so below, as within. So it's a certain consciousness, you know, that causes people to be attracted at that level. So they will show up here, or they'll show up there, or they'll go to the voting polls. And
Mm-hmm.
based on their consciousness, will reflect how they show up, or if they
Mm-hmm.
show up at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some people, uh, I, I had to cut it off because it was just lower vibration. But I was watching a foreign thing. I had just finished one where it was like with gods and people flying, and people living like 140,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
Where this guy met this, you know, I like romantic comedies too. Had met this lady, but he was just the first part of the movie. He was like, I don't have any confidence. He was just really just lowering himself. I'm this, I can't do that. I was like, I can't watch this. It's like, you know, this is too low of a vibration.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it depends on your consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
See? So if you don't develop your consciousness, generally it will get worse.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
So it's all depends on the consciousness. You
Mm-hmm.
have to have a consciousness of a thing to have that thing, and knowledge is different in different states of consciousness. So as you change your consciousness, your experience in life will be different because you're functioning from a different level of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And the other beautiful thing is you really don't have to focus on anyone or anything else. All right. It's just you. When you start projecting outside of yourself, you really can't do anything for anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's another thing as you grow in consciousness. Now, you can be a guide, you can be a lamppost, a light, but they have to do it. That's that old saying: you can take a horse, or some people say a mule, to a water hole, but you can't make them drink.
Mm-hmm.
The free will universe.
Mm-hmm.
So the more you work on yourself, the more you will see changes in your world. The world is as you are.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually a quote from the Maharishi that we used to put up on posters. The world is as you are. So if you want to change the world, you change yourself. You want to change yourself, you change your thoughts. You want to change your thoughts, you develop your consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay.
Yay, Bo.
Got a question for you, Jerry, from
Yay,
earlier in the
Bo.
day. Not so much of a question, but so you made the statement that in the Christian church, there's a lot of belief in terms of what God is and so forth. And I would agree with that. My question would be, if I were having been around that a lot in my life, um, they would not say that it's a belief. They would say they know that that's I believe this. They would start with "I believe," but then they would say "I know." If you question them and say that and say, "Do you believe it or do you know?" They would say they know. So my question then becomes, what is belief and what is knowing?
Okay. All right. So belief comes from the level of the intellect.
Okay.
And it comes from, a limited consciousness. Knowingness is cognition. Have you ever heard of cognition or downloads? So knowingness is above belief. It just is. It's like you know, but you cognize the truth. You know, they talk about it sometimes in psychology. They call it cognition. So, that where intuition and higher faculties start to take place is beyond the intellect. See, you choose to believe something, and you can change that belief. And belief can be, not necessarily, you know, uh, you know, English terms, but right and wrong. You can believe something and it's not necessarily right for that particular situation. But in a cognition, in a knowingness, it's all encompassing. It's the truth. So it's always right from that level of cognition. So I would say belief is limited to the intellect. And then when they say that they know, they're only saying it from the level of their limited intellect. Whereas a cognition is from the level of your consciousness, it's from the level of your truth, it's from your God self. You start to know the truth, and then the truth starts to set you free. But it's a knowingness. It's not something that you can intellectually, pinpoint, but you know it. Just like, for instance, I know I'm gonna never die. You know, I could drop my body, but I know it's not some intellectual understanding. Okay, I know this. I'm planning on ascending, but you never know because it's a fake out here. I might just say, okay, call my friends over, and I'm ascending. I'm leaving the body right. You know, or you go off in your sleep. But the thing is, it really doesn't matter because at the level of consciousness where you are master, whether your eyes open, eyes closed, whether you're in a physical body or out of a physical body, it really doesn't matter because you are at that state, you're being. I and my mother, father, God are one, right? So belief is limited to the mistake of the intellect, to make it short. And knowing this is from the level of cognition or intuition. Okay.
I'm thinking about it. I understand. I understand the explanation. I
Mm-hmm.
just also know that if a person has a belief, has an experience, has a series of experiences to where they feel like they have knowingness, that they would define that as not intellectual. They would define that as a spiritual connection to a understanding and a knowingness that this is my path. And I think I could find that in pretty much all the religions going across the board, that same experience. So I get what you're saying, but I'm still going, that person believes this, has had experiences that are personal with them, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And they would tell you that, no, I don't just believe this. I know this to be true based upon my experiences.
Okay, so why do they get old and die? Why do they
Well, they would say that's the will, that's the way.
right.
I mean,
And
you know,
again, that's the intellect, you see. And even conscious beings, you know, like the Maharishi died, Krishna died, you know, but there's a different knowingness about it. Most people who are, you know, holy roly, they're afraid of death because they haven't gone to those realms of consciousness, and they don't want to let go. Okay,
I'm not that.
You better preach.
Yeah.
You better preach.
Mhm.
So you know, see, the intellect can say anything. That's why it goes back to experience. So they've had isolated experiences, like you know, like in the Holiness Church, you see people shaking and dancing. They have that experience, all right. But has that taken them to God realization? Has that taken them to, you know, 24-hour bliss? Has that taken them into, you know, spontaneous right action all the time? In fact, the book that came out about why do bad things happen to good people, that was a Christian, okay, and they still haven't figured it out. Okay, why do bad things happen to good people? They don't understand the laws of karma, the experiences, the refining of the nervous system, the omnipresence, omnipotence, and omniscience of God. Do you hear Christians talking about that? No, they talk about, I believe and I get healed, and they don't talk about, you know, being in the light and 24 hours of bliss. Okay, they don't talk about being conscious in your waking state, your dream state, and your sleep state. That it's all God. And the Christians, they got it partially right. Jesus is an avatar, even though that's not his name. And you can be healed and you can be born again through an ascended master, which is what he is. But what they leave out is all the other ascended masters. Okay? The Buddha, Krishna, Rama, Akhenaten, Saint Germain. Okay? It's lots of them. All right? So it's something that you got to go in. It's beyond the intellect. And the more you go within yourself and you meditate, then you'll start to know about knowingness. You know, it's not something that intellectually can be explained, but it's way beyond belief and a few experiences in belief.
I get that. I understand it. I guess what I hear or what I sense or what I see and a little partial experience is that some of that's got to do with what you're exposed to. Because if that's the only world you know, then that's the full experience that you can get. So until you can get on a bigger playing field and get some additional information, you're limited to that. And you may do all that you can in that sector, but once again, what's the truth versus what it is that you are aware of? So they can only have that as opposed to the full knowledge because it's limited to that based upon the information. So okay, I'm good with that. And they would argue they would argue us down on that. But at the end of the day, if you don't have all the information, then how can you really know?
Right. Exactly.
That's okay. All right. I just wanted, when that came up, I was like, I put a little star by that, so I have to go back and ask him about that right there. So that's good for me to contemplate. And thank you for sharing with yourself.
Okay. Awesome sauce. Now, a few people have broken through in the whole Christian thing.
Yes.
And they turn them into saints. They canonize them. Okay. But out of the billions of people that are Christians, they only got a few. Why can't everybody go to that level? You see what I'm saying?
Because
And
that's
beyond.
lack of control. That's lack of control of the
Can't do
people
that.
who
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
are right. And which is a good segue. And thank you for that question, Michael. So, J. Rue, I wanted to talk about I know it's low vibration, but I'm gonna keep it on high vibration. I want to talk about the gang element and related to what we were talking about. Um, the gangs that we know in the Black community, you know, West Coast here. We're very familiar today with the Crips and the Bloods. Crips have a certain consciousness, and the Bloods have a certain consciousness. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So each of those consciousnesses are different. Now, from the outside looking in, for those of us who
But both of
did
them are
not,
low. But both of them are low. You see?
that's where I was going.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
exactly where I was going. For those of us on the outside looking in, there's no difference. I was getting ready to say, ain't no difference. Both both of them are very low states of consciousness. Some of the people that are in those gangs, they have an experience that's all they see in their area where they grew up, and so without guidance, then they fall into those gangs. Am I not correct? They fall into that consciousness. The consciousness of the neighborhood leads them to the consciousness of either one or the other. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, in order for somebody to change that, they have to really be on the path to knock, seek, and ask for something different. Is that not correct?
Yes. That's correct.
But unfortunately, there are some people who never come out of that, either because they A, like it, or B, they were exposed to something different, but because of the material world and the material gains and being in something for such a long time, it's easier to fall back into the lower vibration than to stick with the higher vibration. Is that not correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
But they're going to have to
So
get out of it sooner or later, whether it's this lifetime or another lifetime.
either by choosing to change in the material world or by death. Is that not correct?
Right. And
Okay.
even with death, they got to keep coming back until they get it right. That's the whole reincarnation thing, the frequency and the vibration, which is in every major sacred book in the world. And, the Council of Nicaea, I think it was in 325 AD, they took it out. Okay. So there's a wheel of life. Energy is neither created nor destroyed, only transformed. See, that's the other thing, which the Western world, especially in Kali Yuga, they put so much emphasis on the physical that when the physical is gone, there's nothing else. I mean, they give lip service that your soul goes to heaven, if you've been a good person, or goes to hell if you've been ooga booga. But
If you've been a bad person.
yeah, if you've been
Right.
all right. But the other side that is not, believed about, because people be believing stuff, is that there are no victims in the universe. There's only volunteers. So when you come here, you have a soul contract. You choose your experiences, okay? Before you incarnate, you choose your wake-up calls. But because you got free will, a lot of people, especially in Kali Yuga, they don't heed it, okay? So you've already
Right.
chose to have certain experiences. But if you don't grow from them, it's on you. And then you got to repeat. It's just like in school. If you don't pass the grade, you repeat. They say that Earth is one of the most challenging schools throughout the universe. All right. But people want to come to Earth because, you know, the souls want to be here because Earth doesn't play. Okay. There's certain beings in the universe, they're so blissed out, they don't even care. Who cares about going back home when, you know, when I'm in the lap of bliss and lap of luxury. Okay. But on Earth, you know, you get knocked upside your head, and if you heed it, you will go higher and higher and higher. Right. So it's an interesting thing because you chose it, but it's in your subconscious. You don't remember. That's another reason why we want to get you to expand your consciousness and limit the subconscious so you can consciously do everything. 95% of your life is run through your subconscious. Runs your life 95% of the time. Okay. So you want to expand that consciousness, turn it into being conscious instead of sub. And you want the pure consciousness, the super consciousness to run your life, which is the real you, the quantum leap you. This is another version of you here that you've created, and you have to transcend it. Otherwise, you're in the matrix and you just go through it until you get it right. Everyone is destined to go home. You know, may the sun shine upon you, all love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way home. Yabo.
I want to make a point. What you're saying about how getting to your higher self, it's a great wisdom, but it can also be dangerous because there are certain individuals who come about this wisdom and they use it against people because they know and they know that they don't know, such as cult leaders.
Right, right.
No, they get this wisdom and then they manipulate people because they do have it. So there are those who get this wisdom and they use a lower vibration to control others.
Good point.
Mm-hmm.
But generally, if someone was in a cult and they took the Kool-Aid, the person, they did something to that person before. It's the karma coming back around. Yeah. So there's so much stuff being phantom. Just like one time, I took a course up in Chicago when I was living in the Midwest with the Maharishi's group up there. You talk about discipline. We did that twice a day, every day. We went into that dome and did program for ourselves and for world peace, mainly for the US, but every day, twice a day, never missed a day. But I went up for this course, and it was this guy. I've given you one of his books. It's called You Can Have It All, Arnold Patton. And he was a New York Jewish lawyer that was into the hardcore, blah, 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 but he had an awakening. And it happens different with different people. Some people, some of you might have heard this guy, Eckhart Tolle. He sat on a bench for 2 years. He was actually a teacher. And then he sat on a bench, the rain, the poop, the everything. And he woke up. It's different for different people. Some people go into ashrams. Some people have an accident. Some people have near-death experiences. But anyway, he was talking about, karma and experiences and what have you, and that there are no victims. in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And then person got up and said, well, what about, the crack mother that takes their young baby, and puts them under hot water because they're out of their mind and they waste the baby. Okay. And so we got into this whole thing. Isn't that baby a victim? From the physical world, it would look like it's a victim.
Mm-hmm.
But that baby chose to come in to have a certain experience that with that family or with that mother. And then once it created that experience, it said, I'm out of here. I don't want to be on the physical plane anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, people put it on other people. The mother did it. But the baby is the one who left. You see? There are no victims, there's volunteers. Now, how you drop the body is where humans get all caught up. This person was murdered, or this person was, caught this disease or what have you, blah, 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 blah. But that soul decided, okay? There's soul contracts. Now you can change your contract, but that you got to really evolve your consciousness to do that. All things are possible. Yeah. There are no victims on planet Earth, only volunteers. So when you look at the gangs and people being in slavery, sex slavery, and this thing and that thing, and wars, from just a limited conscious point of view, it's like, people are getting jacked. They're victims. Okay. But people choose on a spiritual level, they choose that experience. Now they might have forgotten that they chose it. Okay. But the universe will remind you, unless you do some major stuff to change that energy, that karma, that action, then it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm.
And that's another reason why, I bring it back to, you really got to focus on yourself. Because if you look at the world and get caught up into the stuff that's happening, it'll take you out. Especially in Kali Yuga, there's all kinds of, quote, not so good things happening. But on a spiritual level, it's all good because it's all God. One of the biggest separations, there's God and there's the devil. The devil made me do it. The enemy. No, you did it. There's some manifestations that will come for you to do that divine play, that Leela, but you created it. But you got to have enough consciousness to know that and enough consciousness to change it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It gets deep. It's very deep. But also you get to the point where it gets blissful. You can laugh at it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm.
Knowledge is different states of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, if you just look at the outer, Earth is jacked. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not what's really going on. It's all these experiences helping people to wake up.
Earth is really a paradise. It depends on how you treat it and how you live on it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the greatest paradise is inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
See? And then it reflects outer.
Mm-hmm.
And we've taken on another karma as being Black folks. I just heard another brother talking about the epigenetics, all the stuff coming up from slavery, which that frequency and that vibration is still there, even though we know better. That's still having a play on our physiology. Okay. I mean, just think about that. The black sheep, you know, is always the worst one. Nappy hair, it's bad. Even though we know, you know, the naps in the hair really curls that actually connect up higher energy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a whole thing. That's why, again, be still and know that I am God. And then you start having knowing this, you start having cognitions, you start having revelations, you start to know the truth, and then the truth will set you free. Otherwise, you're caught. That's another thing, too, is judgment. Judgment holds your consciousness, it locks it in. You want your consciousness to be super fluid. I'm going to repeat that again. Judgment locks your consciousness. It gets it stuck. And that's been part of the game. Good and bad, up and down, in and out. It's just an experience. But you got to have enough consciousness to know that truth and feel good about it.
Mm.
But judgment, when you judge this person did this person did that, that's not right. Da 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 da. You're locking in your consciousness. You're not allowing it to grow. That's another way where forgiveness comes in, which helps to loosen up the system so it can grow. It's like watering the root. You forgive someone, you don't necessarily have to condone the behavior. You don't have to say that the behavior is good, but you forgive them, and that release helps them and it helps you, because you lock into that judgment. Judgment creates all kinds of other lower vibrational things. We want to be free from judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Yay, Bo.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah. That's always been a saying about knowing the truth, and the truth will set you free. But different teachers have different versions of what the truth is.
Right. That's where knowingness comes in.
Mm-hmm.
See?
Mm-hmm.
That's you know, because you have that experience.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're into the omnipresence and omniscience.
Mm-hmm.
So in the omnipotence, you're in. So that there's that knowingness goes beyond just some intellectual,
Right. Right.
fact,
Right. Right.
fact or fiction,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the beauty of personal experience, and that's one of the reasons why I love TM so much, because
Mm-hmm.
anybody, just like Michael was saying earlier, they can say all my experiences, from my experience, I know this, I know that, but if their life is not reflecting,
Mm-hmm.
see, then
Right.
they obviously, haven't reached that level of knowingness. I mean, just like the ministers. My mother used to be huge in the Baptist church. I mean, like huge. She's one of the top people in the state of Georgia, and the top delegate for the national convention. And the stuff she would tell me about the ministers. I mean, do these guys pray? Do they even go? Do they even practice what they preach?
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't have the consciousness. They're just going by limited aspects that they've taken out of a Bible.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the experience.
Mm-hmm.
And she's telling me how they steal, how they, do all kinds of lower sexual things, how, they it's just, it's deep. And that's the minister.
Mm-hmm.
You
what do
ain't
you think
said
the
nothing about the
congregation is doing? Right,
pastor.
right.
Hey, okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Well,
So
J. Rue, I can only speak from my experience. Growing up, being christened in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, then growing up in a Baptist church, then as I've gotten older, having experienced mega churches and offshoots of the Catholic faith, and also Church and God in Christ.
Mm-hmm.
So belief and truth. So when and I'm not putting this in quotation marks, and I stand 10 toes down on this. When I realized that which we call source God, meaning the creator of all, actually exists. And there are people who have so-called power in this country who are members of various cults who know that entity, which we call God, actually exists.
Mm-hmm.
Then I was like, oh, I stopped going to church altogether. I was like, oh, so if God really exists, then, and if I'm seeing what I'm seeing, just like you were describing, then there's no need for me to come up in here, because when you look in the actual Godspell, the God book, all of those people, most of those characters are talking to God directly. They're not going to church.
Right.
God gives them a directive. They'll either do it or tell someone else that they are doing it. Hopefully it's for the good of the people, but that's, there are certain parts of the Bible where it wasn't exactly for the good of the people, per God. So if people are talking to God directly, then without even having to get on their knees and pray in a closet, then to me, then that means I can have a relationship, which is what you're saying, God and I are one, with that which we call God, without having to have any middleman, antecedents, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because if I were deaf, born not being able to speak, and if I were born blind, does that mean that I can't know God, see God, hear God, or feel God because of those physical limitations? So that's my perspective.
Okay.
In the knowingness, which has led me to be here, sitting in front of you, because it's interesting to yeah.
Yay, Bo.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome sauce. Yes. The knowingness is definitely the highest truth, and that's what we're unlocking here. Literally. That's the main thing that this course is about. It's to open up more and more of your knowingness. And then you start to know the truth, and then the truth will set you free. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I got more questions Thursday.
Okay. Yay, Bo. Yay, Bo.
Mm-hmm.
All right, beautiful people. So let's give everybody the goody gumdrops.
Peace, love, and divine opulence.
Yes. Health, happiness,
peace, love,
success,
and prosperity.
Peace,
money,
love, divine blessings to each and every
love,
one.
kindness, and namaste.
Namaste.
Stay.
Much blessings, much blessings.
And thank you.
Love and
All
light.
right. Love and light. Martin, did you still want that recording?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'll send it to you.
Me
Thank
too.
you.
All right. Also, when you guys send a request, always put your email, because I have to do it through Zoom, and just always put your email when you send me the request. Okay.
My email. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Thank
Peace and blessings.
Love
Take
and
care.
light. Peace and blessings.
Much love, much light, much bliss.